everyone. Welcome to Dirtying the Frame. I have lost my voice as I said that. Asaad, how are you?
Thanks for everyone who's watched Sarah go through puberty on our pod.
It's a very exciting time.
How are you feeling inside?
I am feeling electrified by this photo of Julia Roberts and
Jules.
Ethan Hawke. Jules. Oh, I'm sorry. You call her Jules. Her friends call her Jules.
Yeah.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We are talking about Leave the World Behind today. It's a movie that went straight to Netflix, Asaad, or was it in theaters for a second?
More importantly, a little low energy. Give me some fake YouTube influencer smash that like button energy right now. Ready? Go.
Hey, everyone. Special thanks to our subs out there. Thanks for giving us money to support my apparent tank top addiction.
Smash that like button with your head. Headbutt the fuck out of it.
We're recording this the day. I had a long night last night. Mm-hmm. I was at a gala or gala. But, as people who go to galas call them galas.
Yes.
Oh, it's so stupid. It was so cool.
Yeah?
Yeah, I saw a lot of famous people there.
Ooh, and we are just about 7-8 days removed from seeing Brie Larson.
Yeah, and I saw two Marvel stars in this last, 2 weeks?
What universe were they in?
I saw, help me out, Shang-Chi, is that his name?
Yes.
Simu Liu.
Okay, yeah.
And Steven Yeun.
Oh, yeah.
Last night.
Oh,
and a couple other notable faces. It was really fun. So I got to get dressed up and I stayed out way too late and now I'm tired. But I'm excited to talk about this movie because we watched it and I'm not going to tell you that I liked it a lot.
Okay. Spoiler alert.
Asaad always gets mad at me when I spoil it too early in the podcast.
Man. It's your show. This is one of the, if you guys have watched Dreams, if you people, I can't say Guys anymore. Guys is dead. Did you know Guys is dead?
I did, yes.
Okay.
I say Friends or Loves.
All right. Loves seems a little bit just as problematic, but this is one of the, if you watched Team, if you watched Dream Scenario, that's one of the movies I text Sarah immediately. I was like, you have to see this. Stop what you're doing. I think she was currently at a Tender Greens and she put her steak down and went to go see the movie. This was vice versa. This is one that Sarah was like, you have to see this movie, you have to see this movie, you have to see this movie. And I told her I hate Netflix, but listen, I ended up seeing the movie due to her recommendation.
Yes, and I was pleasantly surprised that you watched it. See,
it's our job now.
Trying really hard not to give away all these spoilers. So let's get into it.
Please.
Asaad, did you go to any galas last night before we start?
I didn't, actually.
Oh.
I am middle class.
Okay, so I don't know if you've seen this, friends, but we've got it on Netflix. So if you want to pause, go back and watch it on Netflix and then start the pod again. We welcome you doing that. If not, we're giving full spoilers as always. So quick little one log line here. A family's vacation is upended when two strangers arrive at night seeking refuge from a cyber attack that grows more terrifying by the minute. Okay, so Leave the World Behind is an apocalyptic psychological thriller produced and written by Sam Esmail.
Goat.
And it's based on a 2020 novel of the same name. And it stars Julia Roberts,
Bang.
Mahershala Ali, Ethan Hawke, and Myha'la Herald.
Julia Roberts is a cool story because didn't she start out as a hooker?
Yeah,
Wow.
famously. And
Hollywood makes it happen.
And when she said big mistake, huge mistake, she was right.
Good to see her get her life on track.
Asaad, one word summary about this movie. Do you have one? He's going to.
Yeah, I will. You ready?
Yeah. 1, 2, 3. Thrilling.
Dramatic.
Did you say dramatic or monochromatic?
I said monochromatic. Yes.
Did you say dramatic?
I said traumatic.
Oh, traumatic.
Yeah, thrilling's a good one. I mean, yeah.
Thrilling.
Yeah, for sure, man. I didn't know how to feel while I was watching this movie. It was kind of one of those movies where I didn't know where it was going. Thankfully, because so many films are predictable now, but couldn't tell where this thing was going. Even in the beginning of the third act, I'm like, I don't even know how they're going to end this thing. So
yeah, that's a good point. I watched this at home and was so shocked. And I knew I liked it when I had my phone in my hand and I kept trying to open my phone to go to like social media or play a game or go shopping on Amazon or whatever it is that I do on my phone. And I kept getting dragged back into the movie. Now, that isn't the highest compliment.
Yeah.
I don't know what is, because I am super ADD and I love multiple screens, as all of us I'm sure do.
Yes, the highest award in Hollywood is Oscars, but there's one higher, and that's if you're able to get Sarah off of Tinder, you got a good movie.
Tinder. Yeah, no, truly, I think that's become the reason that I go see movies in theaters, other than the snacks being number one, and number two is it's the only way I can focus because I'm forced to put my phone away. but I watched this on my couch and I was just glued to the television.
Yes.
So this movie starts out, and it's parceled out in like part 1, part 2, part 3, part 4, part maybe 5, which is interesting. But the first part is called The Home, and basically these two lovebirds, Ethan Hawke and Julia Roberts. The movie starts. We're right in it. They're kind of in a rut in their everyday life. They live in Brooklyn, and she's like, I booked this beautiful Airbnb outside of the city. We're gonna go take the kids to the beach. It'll be great. They go to the beach when they arrive at this beautiful house. Which, by the way, Asaad, did you know they found this actual house, and then Sam Esmail, he found the house that he wanted with the location scouts, and then he said, okay, now go build that for me. On a lot, because he says he's a control freak, so he says he needs the control of it, like not being an actual house.
Oh, that's really cool. I don't want to step on our double feature segment at the end of the movie, but early on I got real big Parasite vibes. Very clean edges, open format. I mean, everything's an open format when a rich person goes on vacation in a movie, but he was using the house similar to how Parasite was using that house, and this. From this movie, there's a couple set pieces, but you're in this house 80% of the film.
What do you mean when you say they use it similarly?
Well, they were framing the house very artistically.
Like they used it as almost as another character, almost. Would you say?
Exactly. And then there was, a classic what they did in. I forgot the director's name because I always butcher it, of Parasite. But they're using separating class as separating levels. Parasite did that very, very well. They used it with glass windows. They used it with actual levels of basements. And not to ruin a third act here, but yeah, they use it where they use the basement similar to represent class divide too.
Yeah, I did notice that. I didn't draw the comparison. That's really interesting. So they get to this beautiful house and they're relaxed and happy. And then they go to the beach and they're having a lovely time with their kids when this huge oil tanker, like one of those massive, massive boats that you don't really ever see how big it is because it's always so far away from wherever you are, it starts heading directly toward them as they're like hanging out on the beach. And the little girl's like, Mom, I think we need to move. That boat's coming right for us. And they're like, oh, okay, get the stuff. And they like start packing up their stuff. And then the boat like keeps coming and they eventually start to run. And then they go back to the house and almost immediately forget about that.
A really effective scene, really cool.
Really cool. And
this is where we meet Rose Sanford, who's Farrah McKenzie, who you noted that like has a great face.
Yes.
Because she's to witness odd things in the film. Her face kind of matches the oddity that's going on in the film, and a really effective film of them being at the beach and this oil tanker coming closer and closer and closer. One thing to note, like Amanda Sanford, who's played by Julia Roberts, doesn't like people, man. She's kind of more uptight, conservative. Not very risk averse, and that kind of rears its head in this film. But that's an important part in the first act.
Yeah, and I really like kind of the comments, and I noticed it. I watched this twice. That I noticed it both times was right after, in the aftermath of that happening. There's a couple things that happen, right? So this crazy, big boat rushes onto the beach. They're concerned about getting their stuff, which I thought was funny. The kid the older son takes a picture of it, and then they just like keep walking. And then on the drive home, they're like, "Oh, that was crazy! Ooh, a Starbucks!"
Yeah, so good.
And they're doing that on purpose. And I thought that was really cool. And then right after that, they go home, and she's talking to her husband, played by Ethan Hawke, and she's like, "Oh, the kids have already forgotten about it. It's almost like it was an episode of their television show where they're just on to the next episode." And I was like, oh, that's an interesting commentary about kind of the place that our world is in right now and our attention spans, mine included, and just how kids have to be resilient with this stuff. Because it's like, and remember, this book was written, I guess, just before the pandemic, but I thought that was a cool commentary and I really liked it. It was effective for me. And then later that night, there's a knock at the door, and Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke are forced to open it, and it's Mahershala Ali and his daughter, played by Myhala. And they are like, we own this house. There was a blackout in the city, so we drove here to be safe. And Julia Roberts is left to kind of discuss that with her husband, and they're like, we need to stay here tonight. And she meets them with less than open arms.
Yeah, and then you can see why the film set that up, that she's so like against humans. Imagine staying at an Airbnb. Mahershala Ali says it's their house that they're actually renting out. They've exchanged emails. His name is GH. They should know each other. I wanted to ask you, what the fuck do you do in this scenario, Sarah? If you're renting an Airbnb, you get a knock at the door at nighttime. It's someone saying they're the owner and they need to sleep in the house because there's a blackout in this city. What the hell do you do?
Yeah, it's a good question. I mean, I thought it was also a really interesting choice that they had him show up, him and his daughter both show up. They came straight from the symphony, or I think it was the symphony, not the ballet. So he's in full black tie. She's in like a black tie, beautiful gown. And there's a big race issue here, right? Like if this was a white man and his white daughter who walked up to their door, there's no question if they're letting them stay there, I believe.
Yeah, I think you hit it out the park. I think Sam Esmail does a really good job in making a race issue on screen without saying it. Now, they might touch on it a little bit later in the film, but the whole time you know it's there.
But when they do, I believe
not
it's
obvious
subtle.
at all.
When they do touch on it, like the daughter makes a lot of remarks, and that's what I was going to ask you. So Mahershala Ali comes, and he's doing all of this. I'm so sorry to bother you. I really didn't want to intrude. And the daughter's like, yeah, if he hasn't made it obvious enough, he's really feels bad about coming here, you know. And she had a completely different attitude than the dad. Did you notice it? Did that work for you?
Yeah, I think what they had to do, and Mahershala Ali, we could make this pod 4 hours just talking about how good Mahershala Ali is. I think he's my favorite actor working right now.
It's hard to say there's anyone better.
So good, man. He's so fucking good. And they made this character speak intelligently. He speaks like a wealthy person. He speaks like an educated person. And I think that's a cool decision to make by Sam Esmail to, you know, I always may be a little bit biased because of my own experience, Sarah, but no matter what you speak, look, or how much money you make, you're still a black man in today's society.
Yeah. I see
you're still a black man first. And Julie Roberts is like, there's a black man at my door. You know, Ethan Hawke's probably more like, oh, you know, he's the cool dad.
Yeah,
he never wants to feel a way about anything. He's like, all right, cool. He's a little bit more warm and receptive. And he's only having to be as careful with them just because Julie Roberts is so worried. But a really cool story device to put a black man and his daughter at the door and having this white, more conservative, risk-averse woman really having to do something that's really uncomfortable for her.
Yeah.
What's uncomfortable for anybody, but especially for these two.
Of course. And I mean, I was, to this point, I heard Mahershala, like a snippet of an interview on NPR, him talking about this character. And he said his character, GH, grew up in a different time than his daughter did. And so he grew up, and presumably, like, she's grown up with quite a bit of privilege as well, like the daughter, you know, grown up with money, probably gone to the best schools and done the best things. And she grew up in today's life where she's like, no, I'm over this shit. I'm not putting up with it.
Yeah.
And dad had to probably make his way by being a little bit more, you know.
Yeah. I openly will admit I judge the black experience, how it's played out in film a lot. And a lot of times it just underwhelms. I did like the nuance of the two different generations here and how well they spoke on it. You know, a less talented director and cast would have been like, it's a black family. You know, like they didn't mention it. And that was loud enough, you know. I think they did a really phenomenal job here. And he's the Airbnb owner of the home, which I think the real trauma for me watching this was like realizing what a shit show Airbnb is now. Remember the golden age of Airbnb? You know, it's $40 a night, you pay $42 when you're done. Now what happens, Sarah?
$40 a night, it's a $350 cleaning fee, and you have to clean up your own mess. Otherwise, they're going to charge you another cleaning fee.
You have to buy the house when you're done.
It's crazy, yeah, honestly.
No, but really like where this, and what I love about this film and this first act is like, oh, I don't know where this is going. I don't know if I can trust Mahershala Ali. I don't know if Julia Roberts is overreacting. I don't know, overacting. I don't know if the blackout really happened in the city. This whole story kind of feels weird, and it's cool. You're really having to figure some stuff out in your head in this first act of the movie.
Well, it's reminiscent of Us almost. Remember in Us when like somebody knocks on the door and they're like, "Oh, hi," you know. Yeah. And I was telling you how this is one of my favorite things to think about is like how as a society we are focused on being polite over everything else. Well, maybe that's changing quite a bit in today's society because people hate each other.
That's how you were raised.
But yes, that's a good point. And especially women, you know, like we are, even if you feel something where you feel like, oh, this isn't right, whatever, like you're meant to just be polite over everything else.
Yeah. I wanted to mention, sorry, really closely, that the other variable about race here is like, I don't know if that affects Julia Roberts' decision. I don't know if it's a white family. Does she say yes easier? What do you think?
Oh, I 100% think so, yeah.
Okay. Because even, I mean, and I don't know how white people think, Sometimes I do, but maybe not in this scenario. White people inherently, well, even Sarah, like let's take Sarah for example. I've known her for 8 years, and we'll walk down the sidewalk and she still clenches her purse when I'm by her.
Honestly, he always is trying to carry things for me. And I just think he's trying to steal them. No, mine. I always cross the street. We don't walk next to each other. I cross the street because
You never know. You don't want to trust
safer
them.
that way.
Yeah.
Okay, we're joking. This is not funny. This is actually race and relations are very important and serious. In the middle of the movie, we learn something's definitely going on. We still don't know what it is.
I think the second act is propelling us past the fact that these people aren't trying to get over on the Sanfords that are in the house, and now there's some shit really going on here in the world, and now it went from who the fuck are these people to we might all be in this together now.
Can you trust the people that you're with?
Yeah.
You know, it's like, okay, is the fear, should we be aiming that at whatever's going on, or should we be aiming it at can we trust these people that we're actually stuck in this problem with?
Yeah, I always liken it to like if you're in a crowd, if you've ever been to a concert, then everyone starts running because something happens. That's humans at their most like natural state. If something's going on, they're just like looking after themselves. That's how people get trampled. That
happened to me one time.
Where
at that event in Atlanta when somebody brought a gun out. And I was right there. And I was like, oh, I ran into the men's restroom.
And this plays on that. This movie plays on that where it's like, oh, you don't know your friend yesterday or your neighbor yesterday. All of a sudden, if food becomes a valuable resource, water and everything, it's like, oh, now this is why Walking Dead had 38 seasons. You know, this is really good TV. It's really good filmmaking. And then we launch forward towards the final act.
Well, I was going to just quickly mention a part that really stuck with me, and I would love to know if you liked it as well or if you thought it was corny. Ethan Hawke, when he's out trying to buy his newspaper and realizing there's nobody around, he sees this woman crying on the side of the street, hysterical, not crying. She runs up to his car. She's screaming. She's flagging him down. Please, sir, please, sir. She's a Spanish-speaking woman, so she doesn't presumably speak English. If you saw somebody like this, you would be like, let me help you. I don't know what you're saying, but you're clearly distraught. She's crying. She's screaming. She's begging. She's pleading. She's talking about something he doesn't understand. And this scene was so, I have goosebumps actually just talking about it. It was so effective for me because the switching back and forth between this woman who's clearly distraught. I caught, a couple of words of what she was saying, but clearly couldn't put it together. Ethan's not picking any of it up. And he eventually just rolls the window up on her and drives away. And he's now already seen like something's up, something bad is happening. And he leaves this woman and it is heartbreaking.
100%. It's a really good scene. And there's I think 2 or 3 really good scenes in this film. And I don't want to, and maybe we'll hit them, maybe not, but I wanted to just talk about the performances more than actually like the actual movie. Me and Sarah say it a lot where it's like, at worst, if you have a bunch of good actors, the story can be shit. And this story isn't shit. The story's really good. And you have Ethan Hawke, who's just good in everything. Mahershala Ali and Julia Roberts, and a lot of these scenes are just the combinations of those people talking. And it's so important to and this is the only time Ethan Hawke really has to flex an acting muscle, like a typical acting muscle. The rest is just nuance, trying to be a cool dad and worrying a little bit. But this scene's really effective for me, and Hollywood's getting better at diversity casting. So a lot of the time, someone like me who's always looking at race and examining it in film and in America, I'm like, did they just cast that person to fill a quota, or to fit a box, or is it important that this person is a lesbian in this scene? You know. And in this film, I don't know if I've seen a film do it better, casting the specific people by sending a message by what they are. This is a Latinx woman in a field, trying to get a ride from a white man who's upper middle class, would you say? Yes.
This actress, Vanessa Espiaga, like I said.
She crushed.
When you don't know what someone's saying, because they're speaking literally another language, you're just like, and you're still dragged into it. Oof.
Yeah. In fact, it was more effective not knowing what she was saying.
Oh, yeah.
And I wanted to say, this is Wokeisha Corner, Sarah. Because she's a Latinx woman, there's 3 parts that I think, off the top of my head, that really meant something it was casted well. This Latinx woman, a lot of the time, it's like there's so many things facing different demographics in our society. It's tough to try and help all of it, and you feel like you should be an ally to all, This, to me, really blurs the lines, because sometimes you're like, are you for or against this stance in America or the world, Ethan Hawke represents an everyday man who wants to help genuinely.
Yeah.
who wants to help, but just like all of us, most of us, I don't want to help so much that it endangers myself. And it's a perfect scene displaying it. But I thought this was a glaring metaphor for the border crisis in America. It's like, I want to help.
Right.
But do I want to go out of my way till it actually inconveniences me? Is like very detrimental? No, I'm not going to.
And potentially at your family's expense. And I think also, this is really just my imagination running wild, but I think also, even if Ethan Hawke wanted to, I think he knew that this lady would not be happy if he brought home another person.
Yeah.
Another stranger.
Yeah.
Another stranger of color.
Yes. Yes. And that's why, you know, race has become really popular in America to talk about and to make films about, but it's so rarely done in a nuanced way that isn't clumsy. And this film really nailed it for me. There's other two parts where there's one part where there's the world's going to shit, right? Like everybody's trying to scavenge, all the characters in the film, and the daughter, who is probably maybe 14, 15 in the film, says, no one ever listens to me.
13, but yes.
And that's clearly a generational commentary.
Oof, I loved that.
It's clearly commentary on climate change, political change, and like the youth are telling us what to do, and the old guard will not listen.
And when she said that, it's as a young woman too, I was like, yeah.
They don't. Yeah,
they don't listen to you. Both times I watched it, I talked back to her. I was like, they don't, baby. I'm sorry.
The third one that was glaring. So those two moments, the third and most powerful, and you can argue this one the most for me. I'm just saying what it evoked in me. I don't want to say like I know the secret to the movie. You know, this country was built on slavery, man. This country was built on the backs of slavery, right? So slaves built up this country. Other people profited on it. And when the slaves come back to benefit from it, now they sleep in the basement.
Yeah.
And it's their house, but someone else is renting it out now. And when we want to come back and use it, no, you got to sleep in the basement. And I thought that they were clearly drawing lines with that metaphor as well. That I was like, holy shit, man. Yeah. I thought for sure they're going to get clumsy and really like emphasize it, but the subtle way they filmed this was like pretty powerful stuff. I completely got that same commentary. They definitely do, you know, and the daughter, Mahershala's daughter, Myhala, and I forget her name in the movie, but she is another person we should talk about, is a beautiful actress, like really, really subtle, really great. And she had a fun part of being able to kind of, you know, say the things that pop into your head, you know, that you're not supposed to say to be polite, but she was always kind of, and you know, blatantly saying them. And when they were walking down the stairs, she was like, you know, what's next? We're gonna, they want us to like polish the silver for them too, you know. So I definitely got that as well. In the third act, we have a moment between Mahershala and Julia Roberts. Were they trying to smack, Sarah?
Yeah, I think so. I think there was a scene, where definitely it was hinted at.
You smacking Mahershala Ali if the world's ending?
If the world isn't ending, 10 times out of 10, sir. I think he's probably happily married or what. But you know, listen.
I think this is important. This was a really cool part in a scene where, boy, they volley. And we've said on this pod before, where like two great actors are just in a scene. And my favorite scenes is when nobody wins the argument. And Julia Roberts is being won over by Mahershala Ali's character at the dining room table. Then it volleys to like she's kind of scared again about the world, and then they just have a chance where they go upstairs listening to music. Next, Too Close song, the R&B hit of the '90s, sensational hit about a boner.
I don't think you can say that word.
Oh, sorry.
If you're over 13.
Erection. But it's I only bring this part up because one of Obama's most famous quotes, and one that resonated with me, is like, it's hard to hate someone up close. And Obama always said about his detractors and the people that disliked him, he's like, okay, just get me in a room with them. I know a lot of people hate me on the internet and on Twitter, but get me in a room with them and let's actually discuss why. And which I bring up because they produced this film, the Obamas produced this film, and I thought it was a really cool way to actually display it. It's like Julia Roberts disliked and worried about this man until they actually got into a room alone together. And then they realized they actually even had more than just like respect for each other, or some chemistry there too.
And who couldn't have chemistry with that man? He's just one of those people who just feels like effortlessly charming. And this movie then ends in a way that is, people are going to either fucking love or fucking hate.
Spoiler alert, spoiler alert, spoiler alert.
Yeah. Throughout the film, the youngest daughter, who's 13, we talked about their daughter, is obsessed with watching Friends. So she's been obsessed with streaming Friends. You know, she's just got to the end of it, and she wants to find out what happens with Ross and Rachel, the final episode of it, right when the internet goes down, and she can't stream it on her iPad. And so the whole movie, she's just like, oh, what am I gonna do? I need to watch my show. I need to watch my show. And there's a really lovely moment between her and her brother. He's like, what the fuck? Like, the world is ending. Why do you care about this stupid show? And she's like, it makes me happy. Those characters make me happy. And like, don't we all just need a little, don't you want to be happy? Don't you want a little happiness for free? And he's like, no, maybe you shouldn't care about them. But I thought it was really cool that moment. What did you think she was talking about? Or what do you think the director put that in for, Asaad?
You know, there's this is still a race to me, Sarah. And Friends has became, after posthumous, after it's gone off air, has become kind of divisive.
Right.
And it's kind of low-hanging fruit right now. When you make a joke about how white Friends is, it's like, that was like the 90s. We kind of realize that now.
Yeah.
But so it's tough to bring up a subject like this and actually have them characters speak on it in a new way. And I love the fact that the daughter, Mahershala Ali's daughter, said Friends is nostalgia for a time that didn't exist.
Yes.
Which is really fucking powerful, which is like, you guys on your side of the fence thought this was a thing. There weren't 6 white friends in the heart of New York going to a coffee shop with no black people around.
Living in this beautiful, like, yeah.
Yeah, and everybody said that about Friends, but it's nice that they actually approached this, like, age-old topic in a really fresh way. I thought it was really, I don't know, I thought it was really strong that their family was yearning for that, and the other family knew it didn't exist.
Yeah, I listened to an interview with the director, and he said that he, as an immigrant himself, it seems like everyone's talking about, you know, they're nostalgic for the 50s, or they're nostalgic for like a different time. And he was like, I think what they mean when they say that is that they're nostalgic for, they're talking about Leave It to Beaver. That time never existed.
Yeah.
You know, that was never a thing. So how the movie ends is after, you know, she's not able to watch her show and not able to find out what happens, she happens upon a neighbor's house, and it ends up that house has this like bomb shelter built into it that's like stocked with food and really safe. It was one of the rich neighbors who was a doomsday prepper guy who got out of town, and so she ends up finding it, and she finds this library of DVDs. She sees the Friends DVD and she pulls it out and she puts it in, and it starts with the theme song of Friends, a da-na-na-na-na-na-na-na, and that's how the movie ends.
At the same time, Mahershala Ali and Ethan Hawke, so GH and Clay, are in a car outside of Kevin Bacon's house. Mahershala Ali, because of his job, is kind of figuring out what has happened in the world right now. With they couldn't get out of the city because the traffic was blocked. All these automated cars turned on them and blocked off all the streets. And Mahershala Ali's realizing that it's not an enemy that's making this happen. It's not a terrorist act. It's someone shutting down everything, all of our resources, so we will then, in turn, all turn on each other.
Yes.
Like, if you cut off all the resources, the people will kill themselves. And that's happening as this girl's going downstairs to look at Friends, and then Amanda Sanford, Julie Roberts, and Rose Sanford. I'm sorry, Amanda Sanford and Ruth Scott, Mahala, are in the forest, and they get to look back into New York, and the city is on fire.
Literally, like, you see a big explosion.
Yeah, so the people are turning on each other. It's war. You know, and you're seeing all these 3 stories end at the same time, simultaneously. And it's one of those fade to blacks where you're like, holy fuck, they really ended it like that. I
was simultaneously going, end it, and going, don't end it, don't do this.
Yeah, it's similar to Dream Scenario where, like, wait, you know how long you've been in a movie or watching a movie, you're like, I dare you to end it on that scene, you know? And
I do often feel like that. I do often feel like that when I watch movies. I'm like, okay, it's getting to be that time. They dropped the check at Alamo, so the movie must be ending soon.
Yeah.
Man, I really enjoyed this movie. Like I said, it held my attention. I watched it twice and it held my attention. The acting was just, I'll get into my Rose and Thorn, and it was hard to pick one because really, blanket statement, the acting was my favorite. Yeah. Mahershala Ali, Myha'la, who Asaad told me when we were watching this was the second time I watched it, he was like, oh yeah, she's British. No idea. So great accent, great work, Myha'la. You know I'm the authority on that. There's a sequence where we kind of talked about it a little bit earlier, where we've got Mahershala Ali and Julia Roberts in a scene together. He is having a cocktail. Oh, wait, let's see if I can do it. I'm going to grab the Negroni.
There you go.
He's having a cocktail with her, and he's winning her over, you know, and they're going back and forth, and they're both being charming, and they eventually go up and have the dance scene, or downstairs to the basement and do a little dance together. Simultaneously, we're bouncing back between that scene and then Ethan Hawke and Myha'la, who are having their own scene. They're outside smoking, like from a vape pen, smoking weed together and kind of connecting and talking. And then at the same time, the Julia Roberts and Ethan Hawke's, their daughter and son are having that conversation about friends and how it makes her happy. And man, all three scenes are going at the same time, and all of these actors are just pulling me in, and the dialogue, oh my gosh, some of the things that Mahershala's lines are like zingers. I think that was my favorite part of this movie was that. Do you remember that part I'm talking about where all those three scenes are kind of happening at once? That was my rose. I think, woo, really great acting, really great writing.
Yeah. My rose is even more simple than that. More Mahershala, more all the time, man. I don't know, because we like to kind of put people in a box. Kind of got like a Denzel energy a little bit. Like a calm, confident, charming, like a younger Denzel, you know, before he made 9 Equalizers. But it's like, I don't know. I feel like somewhere Denzel's getting old and he's like, I can go now. Mahershala's here. He'll carry the torch for calm, collected blacks.
Oh, man. He's just so... The word that I think of when I was watching him in this performance, and probably all of his performances, are just... He's so effortless.
Yes.
He's effortlessly charming. Like, oh, you don't see any of the work. So your rose is Mahershala.
Yes.
Great rose. Mine is, my thorn is, they had stunning visuals that I noticed in my house, and I thought, wow, this would look great on a big screen. And they did some really cool camera tricks. I would say my thorn is, in the very beginning of this film, they kind of ease up on it halfway through. They're doing these really corny, slow pan-ins, like almost like old Hitchcock movies. Mm-hmm. And I know that was the point. I just didn't like it. It didn't work for me. It was like the slow pan. I was like, what are we watching? Is this going to be this the whole time? It's so corny. So specifically the slow pans at the beginning, and I didn't care for.
My thorns are a little different now. Did that wall turn off?
Yeah.
My thorns are a little different now because I'm like, if you get someone good as Kevin Bacon, give him something good to work with. I
interesting.
Didn't think they gave him something good to work with. So thorn is Kevin Bacon, and now you have no wall to work with, Sarah. But hey, we're still at the end.
Hey, I know it sensed that we were getting to the end.
Yeah.
I did write first thoughts, but I've already said them. Was just I can't believe that I paid attention to this whole movie, and it had me riveted watching this on my couch at home. I was so excited. I also have a quick note that I listened to a interview with Julia Roberts and Sam Esmail, and she said when they were practicing, they were rehearsing that dance scene with Mahershala. She said he is so charming. She's like, and he's so tall, and that's Julia Roberts is a tall woman, I believe, you know. And for her to say like he's so tall, and she's like he's just so handsome and fit, and you're looking up into the most like warm brown eyes, and he's just like, she said that she giggled every time in rehearsal, like when she would fall into his arms. She said she couldn't stop laughing because she was like felt embarrassed and like giggly and giddy like a schoolgirl. And she said I told Mahershala in rehearsal, she said, I promise I won't do that on set. And then she kept doing it on set, and she couldn't keep it together. And I thought that was like I was like, yeah, man, no one's immune.
Hey,
no
Julia
one
Roberts,
is immune.
horny.
No one's immune to this man's charms. Double feature. Do you have one? Well, you already said yours.
Yes, go, please.
Mine is War of the Worlds with Tom Cruise, or like Armageddon, Deep Impact, something like that. But I love the Parasite. That's a great choice.
Parasite or I Am Legend for me, where it's a few people left on this world and even fewer you can trust. I dig that.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
My gummy rating for this movie is one gummy.
Yeah.
It was so fun and really great, and I think you could, again, I know I've been giving a lot of mid ratings. Don't worry, I'm going to come for one of these movies really hard soon. But I would say that, you know, you could take it with a gummy and watch it, a little gummy. It's not super confusing or hard to follow. I think that all of the tones were just so well balanced. All of the undertones of what he was trying to say were just enough for someone of my intelligence to get it, which I like.
My one thing that I want to say, my last thing to say about this movie was, I know it sounds like very Asaad, but fuck, man, I wish I saw this in the theater.
Yeah, I
wish this
did
was a
too,
theater
actually.
Movie. I really like endings that leave you a little bit edge of your seat, and you have to walk out of the theater, and it's forcing you to think about it. That's my one thing that I wish I would have had. I wish I would have saw this in a film. But overall, such a good film, man. Really, I just think there's so many movies now being made about classism, racism, sexism, and people don't do it with nuance. And all those movies end up sounding really heavy-handed and looking heavy-handed. And Sam Esmail, you just delivered on all the tonality of this film because you presented this information, you presented the problems, but you didn't hammer it over the head, and you didn't give us a simple resolution, which there isn't in real life. So really love this movie. I'm glad you recommended it. Thank you.
Yay, I'm so glad that you liked it. And let us know in the comments if you liked it. Thank you, as always, to our swimmers, our supporters. Join us on Patreon. You get bonus content. You get early access to these podcasts and other wonderful things that we're producing at Last Second See. So Patreon or YouTube memberships, we appreciate all of your support and love, and we will be back talking about some more fun movies very soon. It's that time of the year. We've got a lot of great ones coming out. Bye, guys. Thank you.